Hello, everyone. Welcome to Maddox Digital and Customer Success Summit. You are currently watching 10,000 Hours Saved, Scaling Customer Success with Digital Education and a Learning Management System. I'm excited to introduce our speaker, and as I introduce them, I'm going to have them answer our icebreaker question: what is your biggest digital addiction? Please welcome Rob Zambito, founder and CEO at Success Scaled Consulting. Hi, Rob.
Hey, Sham, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. I'm realizing I forgot the icebreaker. Completely forgot the icebreaker. What an embarrassment. But I think I'll answer it in my presentation. You just watch out for the Easter egg.
All right, sounds good. I'll let you take it away, Rob.
Cool. Hey, everybody. It's a pleasure to be presenting to you all today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me just a second. All right. I think you should be able to see my screen, right, Ishan? I'm going to take that as a yes. Anyway, hey everyone, I'm Rob Zambito. I'm a three-time customer success leader and consultant. I have a history of scaling customer success teams from first dollar to unicorn. Co-host of the Daily Stand Up podcast, and today I'm really excited because I get to share with you a true story, a very true story of how my team and I saved 10,000 hours in 1 year of training time. And we didn't do that with additional headcount. And we didn't do that with AI. I want to take pride in the fact that I might speak about AI least of anybody here presenting today, but by rethinking how we did customer education, which was super exciting. And we didn't just save hours either. We used a digital education program to impact all of our main KPIs, to impact our time to value, our usage metrics, our NPS, our retention metrics, our upsell, cross-sell strategies, our customer advocacy strategies, and ultimately we enabled a customer success revenue function, which was super exciting, where CS made up 2/3 of net new revenue, and we drove north of 120% NRR, largely because we took time away from the very redundant training task that we had to do to train our users and get them to adopt, and put them into the more proactive revenue generating strategies that not only helped our company, but also honestly helped my career growth, which I'll come back to. So about me, I like to do just a quick intro by the numbers. 10 years in customer success. I've built and scaled 3 customer success teams from the ground up. And one of those became a unicorn. That was this company, Qualia, in the top left here. I have worked now with 26 companies as a consultant, assembled a gallery of about 90 templates, co-host a podcast, the Daily Stand Up, as I mentioned. We've done 220 episodes in the last year. A few other random facts by the numbers. I've designed 3 tattoos. I've cut 22 people's hair. That's a hobby of mine. I'm an aspiring barber on the side. And another random one, I'll explain at another time. I've been to 97 Planet Fitness locations. So if anybody from Planet Fitness Corporate is watching, know that I'm your most loyal customer. But basically, when I was at this company, Qualia, we realized something. We realized that if we wanted to build a unicorn, we had to land and expand. If we wanted to expand, we had to retain our customers. If we wanted to retain our customers, we had to get customers to adopt. And if we had to get customers to adopt, well, we had to educate them in a very effective, meaningful way. So at this time, some of you might relate to some of this. My team and I, it was driving me crazy. I would go into work every day. It was total burnout central. We were all huddled over this dusty ping pong table in San Francisco that we used as our desk because all the desks went to the engineers. And we were experiencing hypergrowth. We went from 40K ARR to 3.4 million in just 15 months, which was absolutely wild. And the level of technical education that we needed was so severe that, like, this is a true story that happened. Our product didn't really work. It really didn't work. We were finding product market fit. And I told the customer, I was like, I'm going to just show them the one part of our product that does work. The one part of the product that did work was our Google Maps integration, Street View. And I showed a customer, and he's like, I was like, yeah, so if you just hover over this icon, you can see your office. And he was like, whoa, no way. I was like, I mean, you can see your office, right? He's like, yeah. He was like, hold on 1 second. He runs away, comes back 30 seconds later, panting. And he was like, did you see me? I was waving. And I was like, oh my God, we have a lot of work to do. He was literally waving to the sky, thinking I could see him in real time. that was the level of digital education I had to do. But if you're anything like me, you've probably seen similar challenges where you've said the same thing to so many times to your customers that you're blue in the face. You've seen your team burn out. You've had customers fully disengage in trainings. You struggle to show internally the impact of your onboarding. And you've had to trade off between scale and quality, which is really challenging. And the pressure has only gotten more severe. I think there has never been a harder time to be in customer success, especially because if I hear do more with less one more time, I'm probably going to scream. We're all being told to like do quote unquote strategic work when a lot of the nature of our work is very tactical. And we're expected to deliver a top tier customer experience and hit aggressive goals, prove measurable ROI and good margins to our execs. And if you're anything like me, you know there like has to be a better way. So that was the position I was in. It was about 8 years ago now. And flash forward, within a year, we transformed everything. Where, by the way, I asked ChatGPT to generate some images of me relaxed monitoring a dashboard, and they went really heavy on the Italian genes here. This looks like one of my cousins. Anyway, flash forward a year, we had thousands of users training simultaneously. We had no perceptible limits on scale for our training program. We had clients self-expanding. We had managers tracking progress of their employees on their own dashboards. CSMs could be finally focused on outcomes instead of redundant trainings. And me, you know, I was sipping a latte, not repeating the same demo over and over and over and over again. And this was all unlocked by a learning management system. The learning management system that some of you might have a learning management system in place, but if you don't, an LMS is essentially a platform that delivers structured training content to users. It organizes videos, quizzes, and certifications and written guides. It tracks user progress and completion and engagement. And it often includes role-based learning paths and deadlines. And I could show you some examples, but I won't waste your time. But the important thing to know is that this is not just e-learning. This is digital customer success, right? So what we did is we incorporated this learning management system to make it the foundation, the very bedrock of our customer journey. And we built it to drive adoption and expansion and retention, not just knowledge. We tied it to health scores, which was super cool. So we could actually predict user churn based on how well people performed in the learning management system. And that also, like I mentioned, enabled CSMs in a really big way and created a really scalable, measurable customer journey. This was foundational to our ability to raise our Series B when I was back at this company, Quality, that I was referring to. It was the first time in our company history that we actually showed margin expansion. And the cool thing is like, now I'm seeing it become cool again. Like, I don't know if anybody caught this news that Gainsight last week just bought SkillJar. When I saw this, I was like, oh, I gotta plug this into the presentation somehow. SkillJar is the platform that I use, although I've had a lot of success with other platforms like WorkRamp. SkillJar is a learning management system that we use to drive all of our user education. Gainsight clearly agrees that it's an important tool. But it wasn't always that way. In fact, the origin story was really brutal. The origin story, when we first launched, well, rather when we got our first customers, was to do really hands-on manual onboarding in every way we could. And so that literally meant me living in my customer's basement. I kid you not. My first customer, I lived in his basement for about 6 months, went into work with him every day, came home, had dinner with him, helped his kids with their math homework, fixed the product with the founders, went back in the next day. We did door-to-door onboarding, which I didn't even know that was a thing. We had a really white glove service, and we were doing anything to achieve product market fit. And the findings were that we actually figured out how to train our users, but it was so manual, it was so time consuming, it was so expensive, flights, rental cars, whatever. And there was no documentation or consistency. And frankly, it just looked like this. I mean, this is an actual depiction of what my calendar looked like at the time. And imagine trying to find a time on my calendar here between 7:30 a.m. and like almost midnight a lot certain nights. And meanwhile, like people were falling asleep in conference rooms. They didn't want to be there. There was no real personalization. We achieved awareness of what our product did, but we didn't get adoption. And so that was when I started to burn out and melt down And I got this advice from my CEO. He said, look, we don't have a choice, but I think we can afford to do bad onboarding. And this sounds like sacrilege in customer success for most of us. We can afford to do bad onboarding. Um, and bad we did. Because what we did was we were like, all right, we're going to take this thing fully virtual and we're going to do pre-recorded webinars. We're going to quiz our users after in our actual trainings, assuming they watch the webinars, which was a powerful strategy, but really just still didn't quite get it. Because what we did was, and please do not do this, I can thank my friend for setting up webinars that were perceived as live recordings, but they were actually just pre-recorded. And they even had like a little fake attendee counter that went up and down based on the supposed number of people who were attending the webinar. Terrible strategy. Do not do this. What we did find with this terrible strategy is, as I mentioned, the power of quizzing. It finally had scalability and repeatability, but there was low attendance, there was low adoption, tons of complaints. We got called out. Yeah, LOL at the fake attendees. It quickly fell out of date. And it didn't have the ability to integrate with our other systems. So the trade-off failed. We decided it would never work until one fateful day at Panera Bread, of all places. And you're probably thinking, what does Panera Bread have to do with customer education? I went to Panera Bread, burned out after work, and I saw somebody in the back with headphones on, watching a monitor, and I said, "What's she doing?" Then the cashier said, "She's training." And I said to myself, "Okay, if an online education system is good enough to teach someone how to make a sandwich, presumably it's good enough to teach our users how to use the software." And I ended up geeking out on this big time. I even wrote like this whole white paper on how, like, what is the nature of customer education? I'm a psych nerd at my heart. What is the nature of customer education, and how do we move people from awareness to understanding to application? And that was when we had a breakthrough. I realized that the lack of adoption that we had on the previous systems, like the webinar, the training videos that we had, the knowledge base that you might have, was that it wasn't packaged in a nearly a legitimate or comprehensive enough way, or integrated in the customer journey in enough of a way to achieve meaningful scale. So my team and I, we listed out all the pains we were feeling. We were feeling inconsistent experience, and we were like, what if we invest in a learning management system? Which at the time, my CEO said, "I've never heard of these things. What are they?" What if, to solve the low personalization problem that we had in conference rooms, we could incorporate role-based paths, where we have different paths for different people based on their specific role in the organization? And what if we solve this issue of low accountability by introducing quizzes and deadlines and manager dashboards in a scalable integrated system that integrated with everything from our CRM to our CSP? We had no measurement of customer health, right? So what if we could actually take those score results and integrate them in our health score and predict customer churn? What if we could take this like very limited scalability where, like, honestly, if I was sick, if I lost my voice, we were done. The training program was done at that time. What if we could turn that into a model of unlimited scalability where people could train at 3 a.m. if they wanted to? And what if we take this issue that we have of users not perceiving value, and we actually layer it with some really nice elements of this online university? If you take anything from this presentation, it's probably these two things that were really the icing on the cake of the online university. Number one is we issued certification, which there are a billion certifications out there now, but we actually made ours the industry standard. We did everything we could to make it the industry standard. And then number two, we also actually issued a rebate model where customers would get money rebated back to them that they paid when they started the onboarding process, when they finished the onboarding process, or sorry, when they finished the online training program, which was super cool. And the results were graduation rate increased, adoption rate increased, NPS increased, time to launch decreased, the one chart you want going down and to the right instead of up and to the right. Employee well-being improved, health scores got sharper. We had our first time margin expansion, as I mentioned. And there were so many things we had to do to unify the whole company and team around this goal. For example, we had a whole internal enablement program to train AEs and onboarders and CSMs to hype customer expectations around this program. We actually had to believe ourselves that our certification was the new industry standard, which felt bizarre because I was like, this is just something I made up and I'm supposed to treat it with this level of legitimacy that I don't even think it necessarily deserves. And that was all fun and games until one day we actually got a resume across our desks that said, I'm Qualia certified. We're like, what? Oh my God, people actually might be taking this seriously. And now it actually is an industry standard. Um, there's a ton of other elements that were really key to our success, and I won't bore you with the details, but I will say if you are interested in pursuing a strategy like this is an exact pull from from when we did the evaluation of different platforms to build our customer success training program. And I can share all sorts of tips and tricks. I've got like top 10 criteria when you're looking to invest in a system like this. And what I will mention too is like we didn't just invest in an LMS. We also designed it around behavioral science. So like I said, this is my background. I studied consumer psychology deeply for the last like 15 years. So we incorporated elements like progress bars, which if you look up, you want to geek out, the goal gradient effect is an interesting thing you can find here. We leveraged concepts like segregation of gains and the peak end effect, which basically say like all's well that ends well, as a psychological concept. We leveraged social proof. So we said like, most customers complete this program and most customers do so in X amount of time. That certainly helped motivate users who didn't want to train because there was certainly resistance, which I'll talk about in just a second. And we also leverage principles like the mere exposure effect, which if you've ever heard of this, basically it says we build an affinity to things that we're more familiar with. We realized that when people got into our system and they just were like helicopter dropped into this crazy world of our product that had literally 63 pages in the admin screen alone, we had to build their familiarity with the product in a very slow, careful, methodical way and do it in a role-based fashion where people weren't being peppered with stuff that wasn't really relevant for their use case. So like I said, this wasn't without resistance. We had resistance from internal teams and from customers. But what we had to do was we reframed the LMS as the CSM's best friend. Most importantly, we framed it as the enabler of white glove service, not a taking away of white glove service, but the creation of white glove service. And we packaged it in this whole customer onboarding journey that I could share with you after, where basically we have very clearly defined stages from sales handoff to kickoff to training to launch to hypercare to graduation, and clearly defined scripting and collateral at every stage of the journey. So like I said, this impacted all of digital customer success for us. This became the foundation of our CS program, and we even layered in all sorts of other digital motions after around like automated reminder emails and that kind of thing. And at the time, after implementing this and looking back and saying, okay, we saved 10,000 hours in 1 year, feeling pretty good about that. You just multiply that by whatever you think your hourly rate is, and you'll see the value. I fantasized ahead and I thought, I thought to myself, what could the future look like here? Now, mind you, this is 2017, 2018. What could the future look like here? And I fantasized this world of AI that we're now entering, where there's hyper-personalized learning paths by role, there's intelligent triggers, there's just-in-time in-app learning. CSMs become coaches, not button explainers, and modern tools there's so many cool, interesting AI tools out there that can make hyper-personalized videos at scale. I fantasized about this a long time ago. Don't tell my wife, but now it's becoming a reality, and that's why I'm so excited, because this, I think, is a topic that could be your unlock. If you're struggling with really redundant training programs, just know that for me, this was the first time I led a cross-functional initiative. It touched every team from CS to sales to marketing to product to engineering and the customer. The fact that it was so high risk gave me a lot of high visibility internally at my company leading this project. And the result was that this is the one thing that opened my door to leadership. So this project literally changed the trajectory of my career, which was super exciting. So just to close out, I would love to start taking some Q&A, but most importantly, I really just want to feed people with this question of what is one action that you'll take with what you learned today? Will you conduct an evaluation of different systems? Will you go through your customer journey as a customer? I always recommend that to try to see what it's like to adopt the system. Will you set up a customer advisory board and talk to them about this or any of a variety of other strategies? If you do have any thoughts or questions, I'd love to take any questions now, and then also connect with me on LinkedIn, Rob Zambito, and Success Scaled Consulting is my company. But for the time being, yeah, let's field some questions from the audience.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. We do have two questions. The first one is curious how enrolling customers based on role worked. So did you find that customers completed faster or had better results than relying on them to enroll themselves?
Yes, yes, and yes. And I think I caught all the questions. So actually, I don't know if this will share correctly. One example of, there's a couple different ways to do this. There are ways to let users self-enroll, but more often than not, it's better to have your system ideally based on the user's role. If you have that data in your system, have your system auto-enroll people in courses because they don't really know necessarily what courses to enroll in. So you want to prescribe them, based on the features that we see about you and your use case. These are probably the courses that you want to enroll in. This was an example that we built for one client where it was like a path for admin users, procurement, job site, warehouse, additional feature, and then this was an upsell actually. So there's ways to do it that way. And then I think most importantly, it's good for managers. We talk a lot about train the trainer models. It's good for managers to be able to override or prescribe certain courses as well for certain users.
Awesome. And one more similar question. Someone is trying to decide if they should enroll the user in a role based on path, which is a bit more manual, or encourage users to self-select their journey with recommendations.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's better to be prescriptive in general. Like I said, these things can really balloon over time. And if you want to achieve the ideal customer experience, I think you've got to take whatever data you know about them and prescribe coursework to make it feel almost like, like as if a customer, most educational programs, we work with in life, they tend to be quite prescriptive. There's often a syllabus, right, that is gone through. So so I generally recommend working with your admins at your customer to decide what the courses are that each individual role type should enroll in.
Awesome. And last question in general, someone would love to hear more about personalized video.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been geeking out on this big time. I have recently been playing around with Sunday Sky, which is super cool. It's a system that helps personalize your video at scale. You can do it with like AI bots. You can do it with generic videos as well. Basically, taking information, data, converting it into an AI generated personalized video. I was on the receiving side of this recently too. My bank did this for me. They did like almost like a Spotify Wrapped-esque end of year review, and it was very personalized to my use case, which was super cool. That was unthinkable before. I mean, could you imagine a bank doing that with like thousands and millions of their users? It would never happen. There's another system I've been playing around with too. It's kind of cool. It's called Cluzo. I'm not sponsoring. This is not a sponsored webinar, by the way. I'm just sharing my personal experience. But Cluzo is cool because it's like you can just put in a really raw video and it'll refine it into a very polished, well constructed script and voiceover.
We had one other question come through. Do you have any suggestions to scale local language options?
Oh, I wish I did. Honestly, I'm trying to figure that out. No, so Sunday Sky has language capabilities, I know, and there's a couple other systems out there that are they're getting a lot better at their language diversity. But I have found that like certain less common use cases are a little bit harder to come by.
We had one other question come through that I really like. What are some tips and tricks you took in order to ensure that you were the industry leader in certifications? Was it the content or the marketing around the certifications?
Yeah, it was a lot. Actually wanted to share this example too. A lot of it was the content and the marketing. So it was a combination of things between working really closely with our marketing team and pushing out the legitimacy of the program, doing actual research around how this program corresponds to people being more successful in their careers. We got testimonials like this here. We got industry logos stamped all over the thing. We also partnered with sponsors, like people who wanted to sponsor the online university, who would help sort of spread the gospel. Um, this was at this time unheard of in our industry, and it actually worked like surprisingly well.
We actually have a bunch more questions coming in.
Okay.
How did you validate role information? So did you capture that from CS reps, sales reps, or user provided data?
Yeah, we built an in-app flow where when users would sign up for the system, they would select their role. Like in our case, it was you could be the office admin, you could be the order opener, you could be a paralegal, you could be an attorney, you could be a whatever. And based on that, we read other data. Like actually, it was quite complicated because it sort of varied state by state what information you would give someone. So we kind of had like this whole matrix of how to tailor the right programs to the right person based off of all sorts of demographic data. But it started with the in-app onboarding flow that we created, where they would input data about themselves.
Did you feel like the classroom score was an accurate predictor of churn, and was this an actionable finding?
Somewhat. It was not always an accurate predictor of churn because honestly, some of our best performers were the people who said, "I don't have time for a course. Like, what do you think I am? Like, I'm running a business here." And they happened to be like tech wizards who could figure it out themselves. That was rare though. That was pretty rare. I would say it's like maybe a percent of our user base actually fell in that category. So overall, yes, it was predictive. And, as with any health score, a prediction is not deterministic. So it wasn't always perfect, but it certainly helped. And it helped us coach our users too to say, hey, look, we notice you haven't done this. What's going on there?
Did you feel like, oh, sorry, what were some of the key metrics you utilized from the learning management system to measure customer health?
Yeah. So we tracked everything from enrollment rate to completion rate, time to completion. It was actually kind of similar to the way you might think about onboarding metrics in general. Like the big three of onboarding metrics to me are everything from conversion rate through onboarding, time to launch, and NPS post launch. And so you could apply those same three to your overall course or to your individual sub courses. So time to complete, completion rate, and then also NPS post completion. We would make sure to survey our people, our users pretty regularly to make sure that they were satisfied with their experience.
All right, we'll do our final last question real quickly. What's your opinion on making learning fun, like including content with memorable or sometimes funny characters or framed around a semi-real world scenario?
So I love the real world scenario question. That's probably the most important part. I mean, I've seen some people just flop trying to make learning fun if it's a little bit cheesy. I have found that like if you leverage your customer advisory board, they'll often give you really good, honest opinions. If you don't have a customer advisory board, by the way, just send me a follow up. I got a document about how to set one up. But like make sure you're actually taking the voice of the customer to know what's fun and entertaining. It's a good aspiration, but it can come off as like totally cheesy if you don't do it right. I do really like the real world scenarios. And that's where I was saying like this quote unquote fourth wave of customer onboarding is where the user can actually simulate their experience in the system. But it's still aspirational as far as I've seen.
Awesome. Uh, and with that, we are at the end of our session. The recording of the session will be available early next week in our resource hub. and all summit attendees will be notified when the resource hub is live. Thank you to our wonderful speaker for joining us today, and thank you everyone else for attending.
Thanks, everyone.